Okay, I think we can start. Good morning to you all, and thank you for joining us today at this webinar. I will briefly introduce myself, even if I cannot open my camera because I'm sharing the screen, so I'm sorry for that. I'm Costanza Bersani, Senior Consultant in PwC EU Services, and I'm here today with some colleagues and the representatives of the European Food Safety Authority who host the event. This webinar is part of the activities of the Roadmap for Actions on AI for Evidence Management in Risk Assessment project, awarded to PwC EU Services, and that we will present to you in a few minutes. Now, I would like to wait. Okay, I'd like to introduce the agenda of today. First, we will hear Claudia Heppner, of the project manager of the SPIDO office at EFSA. Then we will hear Didier Verlou, head of the assessment and methodological support unit in EFSA, who will show us the roadmap for action on AI for evidence management and risk assessment. And then we will spend a few minutes to talk about the survey, the rationale, and the next steps that we planned within our project. And it will be presented by Cristina Orfanidou, my colleague at PwC EU Services. Then we will close with a Q&A, and we will close at noon till, I hope. Now, just a few practical rules to make the most of this webinar. Given that we are a lot connected today, please keep your microphone muted during the whole webinar. But given that this webinar is meant for you, please do not hesitate to write your questions or your comments in the chat panel that you can find below. All questions will be collected through the webinar and answered in the dedicated Q&A session at the end. As you can see from your screen, the webinar is recorded and it will be published in the EFSA website later. So now I'd like to leave the floor to Claudia Heppner, project manager at EFSA SPIDO office. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning, colleagues. I hope you hear me well. Yes. Thank you very much for joining us at today's webinar. My name is Claudia Heppner, and I'm leading the Science Studies and Project Identification and Development Office, short SPIDO. The office was set up last year as a new function in the Chief Scientist Office at EFSA. But let me provide you with some information on why EFSA has set up this function. The transparency regulation, which brought not only new tasks to EFSA member states and applicants, but also provided EFSA with an opportunity to reflect how fit was the past system for taking up innovation preparedness, avoiding scientific divergencies, preventing duplication of efforts. In the light of these considerations, EFSA used the opportunity of the transparency regulation under Article 32D, which is the reference to the so-called verification study, to invest a substantial amount of its grant and procurement budget in preparedness for future risk assessment and communication requirements in partnership with member states, other EU agencies, international organizations, and third countries if relevant. The office focus is to enhance the identification of scientific projects and studies to fill in knowledge gaps in selected areas in line with the EFSA 27 strategy by generating data, advancing methodologies, and developing tools. EFSA wants to ensure that regulatory science does not fall behind technological developments, and we want to translate them into implementable solutions for our risk assessment processes with our partners at the European level. We envisage that this approach enhances capacity building, fosters convergence between member states, European Union and international risk assessment activities, and may prevent requests for specific verification studies as new methodologies, tools, data, and communication science are developed and implemented in a harmonized way. For these activities, SPIDO has developed a process which is based on the identification of scientific themes and developing their respective roadmap for actions, which require multi-annual cooperative arrangement with member states, EU agencies, and, if relevant, international partners. The roadmap for actions will be implemented through commissioning high-value, multi-annual scientific studies and projects. And at the bottom of the right-hand side, you see the budgetary envelope. So for this year, we have envisioned 5 million, which is mainly dedicated for roadmap development and some pilot projects. However, from next year onwards, around 15 million every year will be spent on preparedness. This is a quite substantial change compared to the previous activities we did. Now, with the next slide, please. In 2020, we have developed the first wave of scientific themes, which comprises 4 themes. For each of these topics, a theme paper or concept paper was developed, which provides the vision and high-level directions. However, the roadmap for action will provide the details on how to reach the vision for a specific theme. On the right-hand side, you see the process, and you see in orange highlighted in the middle, artificial intelligence for evidence management in the risk assessment process is one of the roadmaps, which is currently under development. And the IA vision, scope, and the objectives will be outlined by my colleague Didier. I must say it is a very ambitious project, but very exciting. And I'm very glad that you joined today to share your views with us, how we can make that happen. Thank you very much. And I hand back to the organizer.
Thank you, Claudia. Do you see the slides, isn't it? Because somebody,
yes.
Okay.
I see it, Elise.
Okay, because it seems that somebody has problem. My colleagues tell me that everything should be fine. So I hope it will be better for those who cannot see that. Now I think I will leave the floor to Didier Verlou. Thank you very much, Claudia, for your presentation.
Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you, PwC, and thank you, Claudia, also for the introduction. My presentation here is called Roadmap for Actions on Artificial Intelligence for Evidence Management and Risk Assessment. However, rather than introducing you the roadmap, because this is an ongoing activity, the development of the roadmap, I will more provide you the vision that we as EFSA have on how artificial intelligence can be used in evidence management and our objectives in order to reach this. But allow me first to somehow sketch the relationship between our risk assessment process and the evidence management process. So on the left, on a very high level, we have our risk assessment process, which is triggered by the receipt of a mandate or which is somehow hard-coded in the regulation to a certain point. But the risk assessment process has these phases, these clear phases of a planning phase, where the evidence needs are planned to come to a specific answer for a risk assessment question, where the evidence needs are planned, the methods are planned, and the knowledge needs are planned. And then there's the execution phase of the risk assessment and the adoption phase. And the adoption phase, I mean, I put there timeliness because it's extremely important. Risk assessment goes against the clock. We have a deadline which needs to be respected and which drives a lot of what we can do in this time frame. Now, for the evidence, really, so the evidence part, so in the planning, there's an evidence part, a methods part, a knowledge part, but for the evidence part, we follow the evidence management framework, which at a high level, again, has these 4 distinct steps. So there's the evidence collection part, and we collect evidence because in EFSA, we don't generate data. We don't have experiments going on. We don't have trials going on in EFSA, but we collect evidence. This evidence can come from literature, from member states, from applicants who submit evidence related to dossier, be calls for data, public consultations, or we can consult data holders like Eurostat, WHO, or can be also expert knowledge solicitations where we have a structured process to elicit knowledge from knowledgeable people to introduce into our risk assessment process. Then this next step is the evidence appraisal step, which basically refers to assessing the uncertainty related to a specific evidence stream. The third step is evidence synthesis and integration, where everything is combined into the information which you really need to come to the risk assessment, to provide this decision support answer to what was originally the mandate. And then the fourth step is also the evidence visualization and dissemination. Now, in our vision, first of all, there's the need. So evidence management is a resource-intensive process, and those four steps is extremely, if only executed by humans and with the help of computer, with the help of automation, even then it's really a resource-intensive process where the amount of evidence that can be considered within the time frame is limited by both the accessibility of the evidence. So how can we access it? Well, where is it? How can we find it? And the resources available for the different phases of the process. Because of course, we need to work with the resources which are available within this given time frame to deliver on time the final risk assessment. That's the need. So we have this complex resource-intensive process. And artificial intelligence, in our view, and not only our view, in general, artificial intelligence approaches such as machine learning have an immense potential in supporting the evidence management process in those various steps, and will strengthen the body of evidence. And why will it strengthen the body of evidence? Please, next slide. Because there's an increased, artificial intelligence will allow this increased accessibility of the body of evidence, the increased width of the body of evidence, so the breadth of the body of evidence. And by doing this, enhance the trustworthiness, but by really increasing this accessibility, increasing the width, enhancing the trustworthiness, because it is all fed into a human-centric risk assessment process. And if you go to the EU, the legislations now which are built around artificial intelligence, is human-centric really comes always back. The use of human-centric artificial intelligence. Here, in our vision, the human-centric aspect is in the risk assessment process, while for the evidence management, there's a big role for the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Yet the whole process stays very, very human-centric. Hence, also for the trustworthiness. Next slide, please. We, since March this year, we are under what we call the transparency regulation, an update of our funding regulations, and there also EFSA can be requested to initiate verification studies to reduce uncertainties on risk assessments which are standing or ongoing risk assessment. So also there, the use of AI will facilitate this integration of data that comes from those studies, or will reduce already, because thanks to AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning, we will be able to really have increased this breadth to increase the accessibility of the data, so will also reduce the need of verification studies. Next slide, please. So related to this vision, and then before we then proceed also with the exercise around the building of the roadmap, the key takeaway here is so AI shall efficiently collect, process, and analyze a bigger spectrum of evidence in a timely manner, extremely important, to contribute to the human risk assessment process. And with this, I want to finish my presentation and hand over back to the colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ide. I will leave the floor to Cristina Orfanido now, who will show us the rationale and the next steps of the survey.
Thank you, Costanza, and good morning or good afternoon from me as well. My name is Cristina Orfanido. I am working as a senior manager in the area of artificial intelligence in PwC EU services. I will now take you through the rationale behind the survey in the context of the specific project and the vision that Didier just described, in order to give you a better understanding of the ask via the survey and of the relevance of your participation. So, to achieve EFSA's vision, which Didier just talked about, the project concerns the development of a roadmap for actions consisting of recommendations for multi-annual and multi-partner studies or projects in the area of AI approaches. These collaborative projects need to fit into EFSA's vision and to result, as Claudia said, to implementable outcomes that will assist EFSA's work in the area of evidence management in risk assessment. In particular, this roadmap for action will map, identify, and prioritize working areas in this particular scientific area. It will identify gaps, potential research overlaps, challenges, and technical or non-technical barriers. And it will also identify and rank opportunities for collaboration with potential partners. And this is where either other third-party agencies come into the equation. At the same time, the roadmap for action will identify opportunities for communication. So all this will then be put together to create the roadmap that will assist EFSA in achieving the vision that both Claudia and Didier described of increased accessibility and breadth of the body of evidence used in EFSA's risk assessment process, and also the application of human-centric AI in close coexistence with human expertise. At this point, and if we move to the next slide, please, I will revisit Didier's explanation of the evidence management in risk assessment in order to provide some clarity about the kind of applications EFSA is looking into. So to deliver its mandate, EFSA acts as a risk assessor, evaluating risks associated with the food chain. The risk assessment workflow consists, as Didier explained, of 3 phases. The EFSA first receives a request for scientific advice from risk managers. That may be the European Commission, the European Parliament, or member states. EFSA then moves into this very time and effort-intensive stage, excuse me, of the what we call the evidence management process, where EFSA has to manage and evaluate a plethora of scientific evidence, consisting of, amongst other things, of structured and unstructured data, like scientific literature, expert opinions, etc. So this is what we refer to by the term evidence management. Once all this data is analyzed and appraised, EFSA then adopts a scientific opinion, which is sent back to the risk managers responsible for making decisions or setting legislation about food safety. Now, within this evidence management process, EFSA follows this structured framework that Didier described, which consists of multiple steps around evidence collection, evidence appraisal, evidence synthesis and integration, and finally, the final step of visualization and dissemination of this evidence. So moving to the next slide. Where does artificial intelligence come into the picture? Through the work conducted by this project and after a detailed analysis of the evidence management process, a number of potential AI applications have been identified that can have an impact into the efficiency, quality, and trustworthiness of the risk assessment process. As you can see on the slide, these potential AI applications in the data collection phase consist of terminology mapping in case there are discrepancies, data deduplication, anomaly detection, relevant both to structured and unstructured data, the evaluation of the research or review question, a detection of comparable studies or assessments to avoid duplication of work, the identification of relevant keywords relevant to the research question, automations that can assist in clustering and categorizing information, abstract screening, information extraction from documents, as well as the identification of risk or confidentiality issues within documents, and the identification of relevant stakeholders or experts through external data sources. In the data appraisal stage, potential applications of AI include AI-enabled tools that can assist with information appraisal, with information consolidation, with quality assessment of written work, and the recommendations for the improvement of written work, as well as evidence sources appraisal. Moving on to the data synthesis and integration phase, some potential applications of AI include automatic text summarization, the identification of uncertainties, and following on from that, the prioritization of uncertainties within synthesized documents. And lastly, in the data visualization and dissemination steps, the automatic report production. So if we move to the next slide, let's see where this survey fits into the overall project activities. So the first step in this project was to identify all these potential AI applications that may have relevance for having an impact on the evidence management process. And this is already completed. We are now in the second step, which consists of the collection of insights, meaning the identification of research activities, initiatives, developments, as well as available tools in the market. And this will be done through desk research, through market analysis, through this survey, and as a next step, through interviews. The third step will be to analyze and rank these collaboration opportunities, to also identify challenges and gaps for AI adoption within this particular area. So as we are now in the second step of this project, the survey is one of the means towards the collection of insights that essentially will bring to light who is doing what in this area, as well as the state of readiness, and explore the potential for collaboration as a next step. So the stakeholders who are relevant to this work and who are asked to respond to the survey come from academia, from national authorities, and from industry. Our aim is to understand, as I said before, who is doing what and the state of readiness. So in the case of academia, the aim is to identify ongoing research activities on AI solutions that may be of relevance in evidence management. In the case of national authorities, the aim is to identify examples of ongoing or planned activities where AI has been applied to some evidence management steps. And in the case of industry, the aim is to identify already commercialized or under development solutions that can have an impact on EFSA's evidence management process. For all stakeholders, the goal is first to understand what is being done, to identify challenges that may have and barriers that may have been identified, and then to explore the possibility of a partnership or collaboration on projects that will fall within EFSA's priorities in the area of AI applications in evidence management, in risk assessment. So let's now see what are the next steps. The survey is out, it's open until September 12th. After receiving the answers to the survey, the team will proceed with analyzing the data collected, and the most relevant topics will be identified for further exploration. As a next step, in-depth interviews will be organized based on survey responses to dig deeper into the respective respondents' current activities, related activities in the area of AI. Next, an AI workshop will take place where interviewees will be invited to discuss EFSA's roadmap and to provide recommendations, for example, for joint projects to be funded by EFSA so that these technologies can be further developed towards adoption by EFSA. For this reason, your participation in the survey and the follow-up activities is essential and should be viewed as an important opportunity to be involved in the creation of this roadmap and to enjoy the benefits of actively contributing to this very exciting initiative. Thank you very much. And I believe we can now move to the Q&A session.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, you can use the chat, the Microsoft Teams chat, to ask your questions. Yes, we can certainly paste the survey link here.
Yes, the colleagues will copy the link here. Thank you for asking. If there are no questions, we can actually have we actually have a few questions for you. So in the meanwhile, if you want to add something, of course, you can write in the chat.
So there is a question now about how do you assess the applications? What are the criteria for assessment? So maybe EFSA would like to respond to this. Okay, we have just pasted the survey link in the chat. So we have this question about how will the applications be assessed. Yes, thank you, Hermano. If you can take this. Oh, okay.
Hermano, can you try to unmute yourself? It should be working.
Yes, I've done it. Now it should be working, yes. Now, I'm not sure if by applications we mean the proposal for use cases in the survey or the applications when we will be executing the roadmap, no? If we mean in the next years when we are executing the roadmap, we will follow the usual EU public procurement rules. So there will be grants and the procurements and so on. Yes, I see the comment in the chat. So the application for collaboration will be to go to define a roadmap. The roadmap will be composed by projects, and the projects will follow the usual EU public procurement rules. So there will be either grants or procurements, and will follow usual EFSA rules. I see also the question from Evangelos Konstantinos. I can reply to that. Yes, we want to identify projects within the risk assessment process, especially the evidence management phase, and we want to find external partners. Yes, this is a part of EFSA budget. So I state again, it will go through EFSA public procurement rules, usual, either grants or procurements. I see also Constance that want to reply.
Yes, thank you, Romano. Thank you. I cannot. Okay, now I can open my camera. Hopefully it works. Okay. Good morning from my side as well. Yes, and just to complement what Romano said, in fact, it is an essential part of the whole process that we don't do this alone. Yes, this is the main aim. We want to implement the roadmap and produce and engage within those projects with partners. Yes, this is an absolutely critical part of the whole thing. Thank you.
Any more questions? If there are no more questions, I think we can proceed with the poll.
Yes, my colleague will send you a link in the chat that you can access. So if you can, otherwise I will do that. Okay. Let's start. If you can please click in the link that you can see in the chat. There's a question for you. You have the possibility to answer to 3 of the choices. The question is, in your experience, what are the top 3 areas where AI application has more potential in terms of feasibility? And as an answer, there are all our, like, we can say the possible use cases that we are working on within the project. Some questions are already coming. I see the comment of Costanza Rovida. It's true, actually. This is why we are also trying to prioritize the use cases, because there are a lot.
But I think there is some consensus in what people think is implementable or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I see 6 people. Yeah.
Information extraction from documents and clustering, categorization, and I believe also terminology mapping and data duplication. Yeah. Okay, I think, no, people are still voting.
Yeah, we can wait a few seconds more and then we can go to the next question. I see there's a question from Claudia.
Thank you very much. No, not a question, but a remark, which was also, I think, picked up in the chat. It seems that we were only able to select one topic, not three. So perhaps, you know, in case you have other questions where we make choices, maybe it's good to test whether we can do three or only one. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, for noticing that. We had a few problems with the tool this morning, so so we managed to do that really last minute.
Yeah, very good. But then in case we need choices, then we need to focus and put our first choice first,
Yeah,
right?
the first choice.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
What it seems actually is that your answers are pretty in line with what we found in the literature review.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because it really seems that these are the areas where there's more to say. I think we can go on. Thank you for your answers.
And hopefully these answers indicate are coming from people that have actually implemented these solutions. That would be very good. Yeah.
Now, next question. I hope you can see that in your screen. According to your opinion, what's the biggest challenge when applying AI in the evidence management process? Lack of trust, integration into current workflows, resistance to change within the organization, legal compliance, lack of skills, or lack of funding. So resistance to change seems to be the biggest challenge.
Mm. And lack of trust also. So the people-related factors seem to be of most relevance.
Just a few seconds more, and then we will go to another question. And of course, if you have other questions about the project, the survey, please feel free to write in the chat. Christina, there's a comment for you. How about the fact that technology is not necessarily mature enough?
Yes, I would, I would say that the lack of maturity in technology is actually related to the lack of trust in the outputs of the technology. So not having mature enough technologies means that you cannot really rely on the outputs. And so this is definitely an important factor. I think Didier would like to respond also.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks, Yannick, for asking this question, because I think there's also the aspect of managing expectations of what AI can do. So, which relates to the technology, also the maturity of the technology. I do think that there are a lot of opportunities to really to go into the risk management process and to apply AI, but we need to manage this kind of views that everything will just be done by the computer and it's just so yeah, it goes hand in hand, managing the expectations and really working with the technology which is available today, which is already a lot, but applied to the problems that we want to address specifically. The little problems. Start with the little things.
Yeah.
Good. I think we can go to the next and final question. We have another link for that. I will copy it right now. Carolina has just shared it with you. So please click on the link and then we go to the question. According to your experience, what's the main benefit in applying AI in the evidence management process? So we talked about the challenges. Now let's see the benefits. Enhanced trustworthiness, time efficiency, effort reduction, reduction of human bias. Of course, if you have other ideas, you can write them in the chat and we can discuss them. Is there a problem with answering? Because I see many people connected, but no answer coming. So
Yes,
maybe something is not working.
Well, Sansa, this is Costa speaking. It seems it's not working. Not sure why. It says that.
Let's see. Sorry. I had another account. Now it should work. Can you see that now? I see you inside. Okay. Sorry for the.
Yeah, it's working.
Good. Okay, the answers are all going to time and effort efficiency as the main benefit. This is also what we actually assumed at the beginning of the project. Also confirming our our work. That's nice. Okay, I think we got almost all answers. Thank you. I think in this, it was clearly your preferences were clear. So going to time efficiency and effort reduction. Thank you for telling us your view.
So, Costanza, if I may, there was a question in the chat or an observation, I would say, more than a question, that there is a big issue with access to data. So I would like to add that current artificial neural networks do need to be fed with big amount of data, so it can be a drawback, especially in biological experiments. And this is absolutely true. You know, the access to data is paramount for the development of trustworthy AI. But I do think that this observation stresses the importance of collaborations, you know, and the importance of engaging with other organizations working in similar subjects, in similar AI applications, so that access to data can increase. And this is also a very big, initiative from the European Commission that has to do with open access and data, the shared data economy. So it's a correct observation that stresses the importance of these collaborations. Yes, Didier, I think would like to add something.
Yeah, yes, I completely agree with what you say, but just to highlight that currently we already have challenges to process the data which we have access to within the time frame. So I completely agree with what you say, but I mean the needs are higher than this. So just to add to this, that currently we already have challenges there for what's already accessible to process it in time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Didier and Christina. I don't know if there are other questions. Otherwise, I think we can close the webinar.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So thank you.
Everyone.
Yes, thanks a lot for being here today. And please answer the survey so that we can learn more about your ongoing projects and solutions and activities. Yes, the presentation, the webinar will be published in the EFSA website, so the presentation will be there. I think we can also publish the presentation in a separate file. We will check that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you from us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.